Hi folks, so this is going to be hopefully part of the ride number 7 video, which as you can see is in my basement. I'm just getting done. I'm mostly catching my breath here, but in case you wanted to see it, I'm just going to hit the gas a little bit here so you can watch that power zone thing jump up. So that's how that works in practice. So just about at the end of an hour. Haven't done this in a while, and this was terrible. I'll pan up quickly and show Ruby. So I think what I'll do is just show this very briefly, and then if there's something interesting to show in or I shouldn't say that every time. I'll probably show the data comparison, assuming I can get the fit file down from Ruby. So the one interesting thing here is that, excuse me, if you can see the mileage there or the distance, it's at 15.7, but looking at the Ruby screen, that's at 19.2. So, and it's obviously the same. My trainer is a dumb trainer, so it requires exclusively on the information from the sensors. So I have to think that I either have the wheel circumference set incorrectly someplace, or not really sure. But I'm gonna stop this, clean up. And then we'll hopefully look at the data comparison in Golden Cheetah. Thanks. Sorry, folks. I should have done this a second ago. So this is the. I wanted to show this because this is obviously the summary screen, and again, 15.8 miles there. Ruby says 19.16. 184 watts at 19.16 miles an hour, which makes sense because it was almost exactly an hour. This is showing 181 average watts, so that's real close. Speed, obviously the average is way off. Oops, I'm sorry. Obviously the average is way off. Cadence actually looks better. Ruby is showing 88. Average heart rate of 153. This is showing an average heart rate of 154 and an average cadence of 89. So I'm assuming these are going to be really close if and when brought into Golden Cheetah. But we'll have a look. Hi folks. So I feel like I'm obligated in some respects to do these summaries now at the end of each ride, even if everything looks good, and that's mostly because I did them when they were bad, so I feel like I should do them when they're good. So the duration, the totals here are very close. Here's the big one, and this I'm going to spend probably a couple minutes talking about this because I think I've maybe figured out part of the problem. You know, Hammerhead has clearly acknowledged that there are issues with the speed and the average speed, but part of this and part of the difference, at least on some of my rides, may be my doing. So I recently put new tires on my bike. I put 700 by 28s. I had 700 by 24s. So, you know, as many of you probably know, when you do that, the tire circumference also gets bigger because there's just more volume in the tires and they're bigger. So you can see this particularly on my bike because the clearance is now between, particularly the back wheel, between the tire and the seat tube are really tight. And then again, I can't think of where, but you notice the bigger volume tires, and you actually do notice them when you're riding too. They are a more comfortable tire. You can run them at slightly lower pressures. Supposedly there's not really a big hit as far as, you know, aerodynamics and that sort of thing go. Not that I go fast enough for that to really matter that much. But so the bottom line here is that I miscalculated my wheel circumference. Now if you have a Garmin, and I'm assuming other devices do this too, a Garmin will recalculate this automatically. So every once in a while you'll look down, you'll hear a beep, you'll look down, you'll see that it says auto-calibrating wheel size, and I'm assuming it's doing that by the revolutions of the speed sensor over a certain distance. So whether it picks, you know, a quarter of a mile or a tenth of a mile or whatever it chooses, it calculates that. So I looked at my Garmin. So I had my wheel circumference set using when I put the new tires on the bike, I used my wife's sewing tape, basically, or tailor's tape, to measure the circumference, which I thought it was fairly accurate. I've ridden those tires 2 or 3 times, so I'm pretty sure that Garmin has done the recalculation. So when I did the measurement, I got 2170 millimeters. When I looked at the Garmin today, it was at 2102 millimeters. And when I looked at the settings in Ruvi, and I'm not sure how that calculates it, but I don't remember putting this number in, it was 2096. So Garmin and Ruvi were only off by 6 millimeters, which, it would take a long distance for that to make a difference. But the Garmin and the Karoo were off by 70 millimeters. So in doing the math, I had my 18-year-old high school senior help me. He's like, yeah, that, those differences I noticed of a quarter mile over a 15-mile ride could very well be accounted for by the fact that I potentially had the wheel circumference set incorrectly. Again, probably something that's maybe, I'm not sure if it's on their software roadmap or not, to fix that, or to have the device calculate the circumference like a Garmin would based on, using the GPS distance and figuring it out. But anyways, I think I have it reset now. I kind of split the difference between what the Garmin was saying and what the and Ruvi was saying. If you actually look up the wheel, there's a online wheel calculator. I may or may not be able to put in a link to that, or maybe I'll put it in the video description. But that says my tires should be 2130 millimeters. So that's still a 30 millimeter difference. So anyways, I split the difference and put in 2100, and we'll see we'll see what happens on the next ride. But otherwise, if you're looking at this page while I blabber on here, you'll see that other than speed and things related to speed, like max speed, things are pretty good. Max power is off by 9 watts. It's probably not significant over a 1-hour ride. But everything else is actually pretty good, and even things like power zones and time and heart rate zones, because I basically started Ruvi and started the Karoo at exactly the same time. It didn't have to account for one device pausing and one device not pausing. I rode pretty much solid for an hour, with the exception of a couple of, when I pressed the button. So other than speed, down here you can see average cadence, average heart rate, average power. All this stuff is good. The ride data also looks good. And interesting, I'm still seeing all these spikes. So in this case, again, the Karoo is in purple. The fit file downloaded from Ruvi is in blue. So this is not the Garmin this time. This is Ruvi recording. The only difference here is that I think some of my Karoo sensors are set up for Bluetooth, because they've said that's more stable. The Ruvi records using Ant Plus. So I have an Ant Plus stick that I use in my laptop that I use for Ruvi. But all of these charts, with the exception of this weird cadence thing, which actually, now this actually looks worse, because I know I wasn't pausing this much I wasn't pausing this much. I was pedaling for an hour straight. So these dropouts still look weird. So that all looks good. Some of these I actually haven't looked at, so I'm gonna just scan through them quickly. Not sure what the offset difference. Oh, this is the speed. So that's the offset difference between what Ruvi is recording and what the Karoo is recording, based solely on wheel circumference. Because in this case, I had turned off location because I was in my basement and I'm sitting still, so there's no reason to run a location service. So all it had to work with in this case was the speed sensor. There's no map. I don't know how to read that chart. Power, actually, this is actually pretty much smoother, I would say, than the difference between the Garmin and the Karoo. Not sure what to make of that, really. Heart rate, again, this is super smooth, and there aren't those kind of low end spikes that we've been seeing here. But that leads me to believe that that's because of all the pausing and the fact that the Karoo was recording heart rate while paused and this Garmin was not. obviously this is going to be really weird because, you know, you could see it back here in this speed thing. Obviously speed's going to be off here. Cadence looks really good despite all that purple spikiness on that other chart, and these we're not even going to look at because I don't even understand how they work. So bottom line is things still look good. With this current software update as of the 16th of March, this ride was done on the 18th of March. And some of this may be accounted for by me incorrectly setting wheel circumference. So I think that's it. We're gonna end it here and keep this hopefully mercifully short. Thanks for watching.